Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Today we have a very special guest, born in Toronto and currently located in Coronado, California. Howard Lindzon has been a financial industry entrepreneur and investor for over 20 years. Now focused on investing and advising, Mr. Lindzon founded HowardLindzon.com, whose tagline is Investing for Profit and Joy. Mr. Lindzon also co-founded StockTwits.com in 2008 with the vision of creating the largest community of traders and investors. Today, over 100,000 people log in daily to share ideas, banter about stocks, and even trade using the Robinhood app integration. In addition, Mr. Lindzon has over 250,000 followers on Twitter at username at HowardLindzon. Thank you, Mr. Howard Lindzon, for joining me today on Looking at the Markets.
You are welcome. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Now, you're connected to both StockTwits and Twitter. What does StockTwits bring to the financial community that Twitter could not?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty big difference around intent. StockTwits is, I built StockTwits in the vision of people who love talking about the markets all day long. So, if people want to talk about food or sports, they can do that on StockTwits, but we created a way for the tickers with the dollar sign, for the tickers to be the center of attention, whether it's Apple or Netflix or a small cap stock. And so Twitter is for people to talk about everything. StockTwits is for people to talk about stocks. So I use both because on Twitter I goof off and do marketing and talk about other investments that I've made in private companies and network with other venture capitalists. On Twitter, really, it's just a group of a couple 100,000 friends who love talking about stocks.
Yeah, but what a community of friends it is.
And,
I just love connecting on StockTwits. I'm a very heavy user, and I really appreciate what you've put together there.
What do you find the big differences?
When I go on StockTwits and let's say I put a chart up there, I'll get a few responses. When I go on StockTwits and put a chart there, even if it's a more esoteric chart, something that isn't flashy or anything like that, I still get an overwhelming response. People really appreciate, the finer aspects of trading, of investing on StockTwits. They really have the knowledge, the know-how, and they appreciate it more. Not that people don't appreciate it on StockTwits, but I think StockTwits, you just don't have that sense of community. I don't get the feedback on Twitter that I get with StockTwits. And so, it really is a totally different experience, and I'm sure you found the same thing.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. We're trying to continually, there'll be a lot of stuff coming up, but we're trying to continually think through what would stock market enthusiasts, connoisseurs, beginners, how do they want to see the site? So now that we have, monthly almost, over 300,000 logged in users, kind of bigger than Bloomberg in terms of people logged in.
Sure.
We get requests to do all kinds of different setups. So we're trying to stay true to the original community aspect, but also grow at the feature set.
Yeah, and it's an amazing thing that you've created here. Now, you're quite an author. You're a co-editor of the 2011 book, The StockTwits Edge, 40 Actionable Trade Setups from Real Market Pros, which is available on Amazon, among your other works that you've authored or edited or co-edited. Now, what are some of your favorite go-to trade setups?
For me, I like strength. I've never had the ability mentally or mood-wise to handle, weakness and negativity. So I generally follow all-time highs. And then, if it's not a setup within which I feel like I have as good a feel as anybody, then I generally am relying on people, not setups. So,
Right.
so all the people in the book were people chosen not because I liked their setups, just because I thought they were good at what they do and could stay true to their setups. So that's something that I try and teach people is like, if I'm not following a certain person because their setup's the best. I'm following the person because they're good at what they do. I have some context of how they think about the market. So if they don't trade momentum, I don't want momentum ideas from them. But if Chris Kimball or John Boorman talk about a stock, I know why they're thinking about it. So it's easier for me to understand that. So for me, it's people over everything.
Makes sense. Yeah, you're not going to tolerate any weakness in a stock, which, you know what, that makes sense to me. Why fight it, right? Don't be a hero, as they say. Now, one of my favorite features of StockTwits, which is not on Twitter, is the green bullish signs and the red bearish signs. Do you believe it's possible to trade or invest based on a preponderance of bullish or bearish sentiment, as seen by the bullish and bearish signs that we see on StockTwits and other social media?
I believe it is. I don't think it's something I rely on. I mean, I have access to all the data, so generally I like looking at the macro stuff more of how many bullish messages on the total site versus bearish. I mean, one of the issues is we continue to grow, so it's hard to factor the overall growth into the ratios. If StockTwits was the same amount of users every day and not growing, it'd be maybe a little easier. So, I think that people are chasing this holy grail of one signal. I don't think investing is that easy, especially over time. I do think at huge swings in negative sentiment, which we don't see that often, I think sentiment can really work as a contrary signal. But I think we've been in such a long bull market that if you have been just relying on sentiment to help you lighten up or sell, it hasn't helped you. And so that's my reason. I think at some point sentiment continues to get better, but I think it's just one tool in what should be an investor or trader's weapon, and that includes social sentiment. And I have a lot of data that I look at, and I still don't trade off of it.
Interesting. Okay. Now, you've been described as an angel investor, among other things. Which startups that you've been involved in are you the most proud of?
Well, I mean, they're all different. I mean, in terms of sheer, one of the first ones that was a success for me was Golf Now, Tea Time, a booking tea time company out of Phoenix, which we invested in, and Comcast bought them. And when we invested, we were like, wow, this is going to be the booking engine for tea times. And it turns out that over 90% of tea times in the United States now continue to be booked on golfnow.com, which is owned by the Golf Channel. So I think, seeing something early and having, conviction that this is going to be a thing is exciting, forgetting the money that was made. In terms of that recently, Robinhood, which was ridiculed, for being a mobile-free millennial trading app. And when we invested at the beginning, nobody really gave it any chance of success, and they're the fastest growing brokerage ever, a couple million brokerage accounts, and integrated with StockTwits, just raised over $100 million at a 1.3 billion valuation. So I think those are two examples of companies that I saw believed they could be huge companies. And Golf Now is, I don't know, 15 years old, but Robinhood's only 4 years old, and both
anybody wasn't taking Robinhood seriously 3 years ago, they're certainly taking it seriously now, as they should be. Now I wanted to talk about howardlindzon.com. The link is in the description of the video. Now this features a blog, a newsletter, a resources page, and much more. Now, in addition to the free content, which I definitely recommend people should at least check that out, what premium services can be accessed through the website?
Well, I believe in mentorship. So, there's this whole myth out there that, if people are selling their services, then that means they're not good at the business of investing, because if they were, they would just focus on that. That's utter nonsense. The scale of the internet allows people like JC, who have All-Star Charts, or Chris Kimball, or Ivan, who works with us, or you, or anybody that has been able to tap into 100 or 200 people willing to pay, should consider starting a service where they can mentor younger investors. First of all, I think the amount of millennial investors is going to be gigantic. So there's a big, that goes against what people are saying out there. The millennials, don't care or are never going to learn. So I think the market is gigantic. And I think with Facebook and Google and with the social web, I think if you can get 100 customers, you can easily find the next 900 customers. So if someone wants to build a business educating and mentoring around the financial markets, I think they should do it. So on StockTwits, we encourage it. And if not on StockTwits, people call me all the time or hit me up and say, what should I do? Should I start a premium business? And I always tell them, listen, that first 100 users, as easy as it sounds, is really hard. But I think if you can resonate with 100 people and they fit a certain profile, I think you can use tools to quickly, get that to 500 to 1,000 and build a business. But, it's not easy getting those first 100 people to pay.
That's for sure. But I do agree that StockTwits is and I'm glad that you encourage this for people to find a mentor. Not that StockTwits is necessarily something that you want to get trading or investing advice directly from people's postings, but you can find somebody who really resonates with you and you're looking for guidance. That I think that's a great place to go. Yeah. Now, speaking of StockTwits, cash tags. I love the cash tags. A cash tag is defined, in case somebody doesn't know, as a ticker symbol, but it's preceded by a $sign instead of the usual hashtag. For example, let's say $sign AAPL would be Apple. Now, would it be fair to say that Twitter kind of sort of hijacked the cash tag from StockTwits?
Yeah, I called it a hijacking in the sense that, it was something we just donated by using all the time to the community. And so it wasn't something we were patenting or cared about. But at one point, Twitter, announced it as their own, and so I called it a hijacking. I mean, in the end, if there's not a business around the $sign in and of itself. StockTwits has built a business by building a community and encouraging, tens of thousands of investors to share, like yourself, to share ideas and hang out. That's the business. So it was more just, at the time, especially sounding off as an investor in Twitter at the time and shareholder, is that, Twitter just didn't really understand or respect the people that made, and you can see how they've struggled, over the years, because they didn't really understand how their community was built up. Yeah. And so I think, that's blown over in the sense that, the person that did it has left the company. So many people have left the company. I think Twitter is turning a corner, say, around this stuff. But still, when companies or people don't have to, when success comes upon certain companies, they don't even really understand how to appreciate it. You get those type of problems. So yes, it was a hijacking, but it wasn't something that we were really, it was more a reaction to how they did it than the fact that they took the $sign.
Unfortunately, yes. Now, I wanted to talk about, since you're not just an angel investor, an entrepreneur, but also, in my estimation, an expert in the financial industry. And nothing we're saying in this video is advisement or suggestion to buy or sell anything. People have to do their own due diligence, do their own research, make your own decisions. But you recently had a blog posting on howardlindzon.com about cryptocurrencies. What's your outlook on that right now?
I'm long-term bullish. The banks are still in denial. We're still in payback mode for the crisis in 2008 and globalization. These cryptos are not an American thing because Visa, MasterCard, cash, pretty much accepted everywhere. But in certain countries where they're skipping over cash or they're skipping over credit, like in China, where the phone and financial and Tencent and WeChat are used for payment, you can see that like the American way of money or even the European way of money is not a lock, right? Now, is it going to be a crypto or is it just going to be some kind of big financial company on your phone that you pay with? I don't know. But what we're seeing is this lack of trust around banks and this lack of and this younger generation's trust in digital and their phones starting to play itself out in weird, unimaginable ways for the banks. For example, on Venmo, there's trillions of dollars floating around on top of the banking system already, where kids have, $50, $100 not deposited, just sitting on Venmo to pay friends off, or, for dinner or for a bet, or just for day-to-day usage. So there's money already sitting on top of the system. And then with Bitcoin and with Ethereum, there's this way to transfer money and also hold them just like I do as an appreciating asset, limited supply, easy to track your ownership, and whether you can use it to pay for coffee is something that journalists always argue over. But as it's turning out, that is not something that investors and collectors and traders seem to be worried about. And that's baffling a lot of people because they say that Bitcoin and Ethereum doesn't have a use. But we're seeing it have a use right now with token sales and ICOs, in the fact that, for example, one of our companies, Civic, raised $33 million by having people convert their Bitcoins through Civic into tokens, of which then Civic takes those Bitcoins and sells them in the public market to get their cash. So Civic raises $33 million. People actually had a use case for their Bitcoin by buying Civic tokens and now have a piece of Civic. So it's a whole new transfer of wealth and power happening on a completely new system that is still at some level tied to the dollar, but also now tied to corporate, deposits and marketing. So a little detour on what people thought Bitcoin and Ethereum, let's say, were like. So in my world, anytime I see 30, 40, 50%, forgetting how far they've run, anytime I see a 30, 40, 50% in something that has limited supply and has evolving use cases, that's how I think about owning Bitcoin and Ethereum. So long term, I'm long. I bought some this weekend. If they doubled next week, I'd sell some. I just kind of use my my greed and fear kind of knowledge around Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's just one of many positions.
Sure. Speaking of your many positions, are there any other stocks or companies or sectors that you're bullish on right now?
Yeah, I try not to think of sectors. I have the majority of my money in what I call 8 to 80 stocks, which are brands whose products and companies appeal to people 8 years old all the way through to they're 80 years old, or you can call it 8 to 108 because people are living longer. So from the Nikes to the Match.coms, which is, dating sites, to Google, Netflix, Facebook, Tencent, Johnson & Johnson, Disney. These are companies that if you see them down 20 to 25%, you don't chase them. But when you see these companies, you just have this list, and mentally I know the stocks that I want to own. But in bear markets or when they drop 20, 25% is when I get excited. Yeah. There's also all-time highs, which is the list that I scan, which is for fresher ideas. Sometimes my 8 to 80 stocks, of course, like Amazon, are on that list right now, or Netflix. Sure. But, I'm constantly looking through the all-time highs to see if there's some new brand or company that needs to be added to my list or portfolio. So by using the all-time high list, I kind of am curating for the strongest stocks. That's I keep it really simple, but that's how I work.
Sure, nothing wrong with simplicity. Works for me. And finally, when you started StockTwits, did you imagine that it would be as successful as it has become?
I imagined that, we had a good plan and we thought we could build something great. I honestly didn't imagine it would take this long or be this much heartache to build a company. So I thought those things would happen faster, and you good at certain things and bad at certain things and struggle with certain things. But I'm not surprised that, because I think it's a product. We were building a product that I would use every day, and so 9 years later, I still use StockTwits more than even Twitter. Yeah. So I believe in the exchange of ideas, and I believe in having fun at your career, and investing is, a battle of wits and minds and camaraderie and ideas. So I'm not surprised that StockTwits is working. I am surprised at how hard it is to build, a lasting business. So we're proud of the 9 years, and think now that we have 9 years under our belt, we have some context for what the next 10 years will look like, and have a little more confidence looking forward and thinking, well, we'll be around, so let's really have a plan for what our community and network needs to stay healthy and grow. So, it's the good, the bad, the ugly. It's, we've survived that for 9 years, and we think it'll be an easier 9 years.
And I'm looking forward to the next decade that StockTwits will bring, as well as your other, everything else you've brought to the financial and other communities. It's really great. I'm addicted to StockTwits, so I blame you for that. But I also blame the wonderful sense of community that really is there, and that is the key word.
I appreciate that. I think the addicted part, I think you're saying that in a non-negative way. I think the addicted part means, we need tools that help us do our job better. StockTwits is a tool. We don't consider our users to be addictive as a bad thing because they got to get on there to fight with somebody or got to get on there to trade. Right. I've never traded less in my life, even though I'm addicted to StockTwits, because I feel like there's a extended network looking over my shoulder for me to catch me up. And that's where the addiction comes in, is, you've built this peloton or this warm blanket of people that you trust out of hundreds of thousands, and it's the quickest way to get you a pulse of your portfolio, the market, what could be changing, and that's a strongly addictive thing because it works.
Exactly.
It's not for everyone. Our goal is, and people can reach out to me anytime, or obviously you, and we can help onboard them. But it's not easy. People think, well, it didn't work for me the first day, so I don't get it. Or they see somebody flaming a comment and go, well, this is terrible. And I think people need to understand that in a real-time internet network, especially pseudonymous, where people don't have to say who they are, this takes time to kind of figure out. And, at StockTwits, our goal is to help people get to an aha moment really quickly. But as we've learned, that's really tough. Yeah. So we rely on people like you and the community to spread the good word, especially if you like it. And I think we're starting to see that. I think people are starting to realize that everybody is important to the community, and hopefully that comes through.
Absolutely, it certainly is. Thank you so much, Mr. Lindzon, for joining me today. I suggest that everybody should check out howardlindzon.com. Link is in the description, as well as on Twitter at Howard Lindzon, and of course StockTwits.com if they're not there already, which most people probably are. What is the best way for people to reach you for more information?
My email, Howard on StockTwits at Howard Lindzon, or my email, howard@lindzon.com works. So I'm available that way.
And you are I know this for a fact, you're very responsive to people with questions, genuine questions or concerns. And I love the accessibility. I think that's great. Mr. Howard Lindzon, I know you're a busy man. I can't wait to get back on StockTwits right now. So thank you so much for joining me today on Looking at the Markets. You're welcome back anytime, sir.
Okay, see you on the stream.
Okay.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.